Hi, if you're new here, welcome, happy to have you, and if you've been here before, welcome back. Today I will be discussing every book that I'm going to read in the month of July. I know this video is being posted on the 15th, literally in the middle of July. That was not supposed to happen. If you've been here before, then you probably already know all of the technical difficulties that I was experiencing some odd weeks ago. So here it is. I'm still going to upload the video, so at least gives you a few weeks notice of the books that I'm going to be reviewing for next month. The four main channel series that I'm going to be reading for include Tolkien and Middle-earth, which are rereads, deep dives, discussions, and anything really having to do with Tolkien and his world of Middle-earth. Red flag fiction, where I read, discuss, and review books that are deemed culturally as a red flag if they're seen on your shelf. The dystopian, apocalyptic, and post-apocalyptic, where we have discussions on the humanity, the survival, the psychological aspects of surviving these tales. And Hemingway, which are rereads and discussions of books either written by Hemingway or authors that have been inspired by Hemingway's writing style. In June, I read The Hobbit, The Fountainhead, The Stand, and The Garden of Eden. Videos for all of those June reads are being posted this month, and all of the books that I am talking about today will be posted next month. This way, as I mentioned earlier, this gives you, about a month's notice in case you want to read along or just refresh yourself before I make videos on any of these books. Okay, without further ado, let's get into the July reads. Next in line for Tolkien and Middle-earth, of course, we have The Lord of the Rings, and I'm going to be doing all three parts of The Lord of the Rings in separate videos. So next up, of course, will be The Fellowship of the Ring. Haven't decided if I'm going to read from this big copy or if I'm going to read from my individual Easton Press ones yet. We'll see. There's not too much to be said here. I think most people understand at least the story of The Lord of the Rings, whether it be from the films or if they're familiar with the books. But I am very excited to reread The Fellowship. It has been several years since I have done that, and it was my favorite book out of the three for a long time, and so I'm interested to see if that still is true. And especially just coming off of reading The Hobbit and refamiliarizing myself with the children's book and all of the lore that went into that, I'm really interested to see the connection between the two books and dive a lot deeper into that. I'm going to be making a lot of connections between just like more information that you find out, maybe how things are a little bit inconsistent, questions that we still have, all kinds of things. So I am very excited. I do want to be transparent. I am a huge Lord of the Rings fan. Every time I read these books, it's so familiar. Obviously, I get that familiar feeling, but it almost feels like I'm reading it for the first time. I've said that to other people that have read The Lord of the Rings, and they know what I mean. So I'm just so excited. Any excuse to read these books again, and I will do it. For red flag fiction in July, I'm going to be reading the great American novel, The Great Gatsby. Now, this is one of those books that tends to be very polarizing. People either really love it or they despise it. I feel like there's not often a ton in between, and people are just, they're very opinionated. And there's so much that I want to get into with this book because there's so many questions about the author himself, his motives in writing it, if he is aware of some of the issues that are in it. There's just so much to explore between not just the novel, but also the time period in which the author existed and decided to write it in. There's also a lot of really interesting parallels between his own life and his ending and a lot of the characters' endings. Just so much to talk about here. So if you absolutely despise this book, it still might be an interesting video for you. I will mention too, I'm going to be discussing a little bit in that video Trimalchio versus The Great Gatsby. If you are unfamiliar, Trimalchio is essentially the early version of The Great Gatsby that Fitzgerald wrote, and it was, based off the character of Trimalchio. And the only reason I'm rereading that and referencing it is because there's a couple subtle differences that I want to talk about that I think does make a difference into people's opinion of Gatsby as a character. So just FYI, kind of will be bringing that into that video as well. The next dystopian, apocalyptic, or post-apocalyptic novel that I'm going to be reading is Lord of the Flies. I am actually very, very excited to reread this. I have only read it once before, but it left such an impression on me that I remembered it forever. So I'm interested to see if my thoughts still stay consistent. If you don't know what this is, it's basically a story where a bunch of school-aged boys are stranded on an island and attempt to self-govern. I'm sure you can imagine how that goes. One thing I do remember about this book very vividly is that I was a very big fan of the author's prose, so I am interested to see if I still feel the same way about his writing. And for Hemingway this month, we have Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas by Hunter S. Thompson. Thompson stated many times that Hemingway was one of his biggest literary influences, and that is beyond evident in Fear and Loathing. This is another novel that seems to be a bit touchy with people. There are so many that hold it in such high regard, absolutely love it, and then there's a bunch that just think it's basically complete trash. Since I'm filming this in the middle of the month, I actually have already finished reading this, and full disclosure, I read this book every July. I started that tradition after moving to Las Vegas many years ago because there's something, I don't know, so enjoyable and comical to me about reading this absolute brain-rotting chaos that ensues under the Las Vegas sun, while I'm reading it, losing my mind, melting in the heat of the Las Vegas sun. So I started that tradition and I've kept up doing it, but I'm very excited to discuss this book through the lens of Hemingway. And on this channel, I do a series called Forcing Myself to Read, where I essentially force myself to reread books that I previously disliked to see if and how my opinion has changed over time. I did this both with To Kill a Mockingbird and The Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. And again, since I'm filming this in the middle of the month, I've already read this for this month, but I reread The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. This was a book I had to read in school, and I actually did read this one in school because there are a lot of books. If you've seen my previous videos, you'll know that I didn't always read the books that they told us to read in school, but I did read this one, and I remember at the time really not liking the execution. I didn't particularly like the writing. I didn't like the pacing. I found it problematic. I found the way that the story was told to be a bit boring and overdramatic. There were just issues, but I liked the concept. I liked the message. So I wanted to go back as an adult and see if I had a different opinion on this. So look out for that video. That video will be coming out next month as well. The Fellowship of the Ring, The Great Gatsby, Lord of the Flies, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and The Scarlet Letter. July, what an excellent reading month we have ahead. Let me know in the comments down below which books you're going to be reading for the month of July. Until next time, I hope you have a wonderful week.